muscle reaction. So I'm happy to take a few questions as I sort of wrap up about this game. But I want to talk about that idea of chunking as it regards to both players, because that's one of the easiest concepts to get, and also one of the most powerful. It's just breaking what happened in the game into sections. There's no need to have an early game chunk specifically, and then your middle game chunk. You can just do it however you want, but try to make sure that things that happen similarly, like at the same time, are in the same chunk. So hey, I saw that there were 3 or so gateways, and blink and expand kind of at the same time. And I could reorder that, explore that around, but that seemed to give a little bit of ease of defending, some aggressive opportunities, not many, but some. And then after that, getting all those gateways and getting Templar and expanding again, that's the second chunk I'm visually seeing in my head. And I really like that a lot, because I'm thinking, well, actually, let me say, first of all, I like that a lot because I like doing that personally. So if you want to do that, you could open up with like an Immortal push or something like that, like a 1-base Immortal push, and then expand, and then go Zealot Templar. You can always do this middle game chunk without doing what White-rA did in the opening. But I think that blink into Mass Templar Zealot play works well, because we already have the Twilight Council up. We already got it for blink, so then we can just immediately get charge and immediately get the Storm. And then after that, what's the last chunk that I really saw? Getting a Warp Prism and abusing the Warp Gate. What a cool late game strategy. I mean, most people are aware that you can put pressure early on, but then once you hit the mid game, people just kind of warp in wherever, and defensively, if he's attacking me, sure, I can warp it in at my front. But aggressively, let me just build a pylon in this base 10 minutes before anything happens there, so that way I can warp stuff in. It's going to work brilliantly for you, especially if you have blink. Likewise, Little One, I saw this nice timing push, and then I saw this nice use of tanks, but then, like, past that, I didn't, it felt a little unfocused and could have been linked together a little bit stronger with some upgrades, with slower expanding. A lot of the trouble Little One had in the later stages of the game was because there's that expansion down at the bottom left. It's going to be very, very tough to deal with. So, yeah. So, let's take a question from KZN Lol, who says, with regards to White-rA's strat of fast VR, fast Void-rA to force Marines. Okay. Sorry, VR. I saw that and I was like, virtual reality? Fast virtual reality in Starcraft 2. So with regards to White-rA's strat of fast Void-rA to force Marines, following it up with Zealot and High Templar, what if your opponent just builds turrets instead of Marines? Obviously you should expand rapidly, but should you just continue to make Stargate tech? Or should you just drop it and move to another tech path, having forced turrets? Yeah, absolutely. You should just abuse the fact that there are these strong but really immobile units that can only shoot up. So just make less air, make less Dark Templar, and you're going to be in fantastic shape. And by the way, that example that KZN Lol used, another great example of how White-rA's middle chunk of Zealot High Templar can have another lead-in, can have these Void Rays leading in. Now here's another great question by T-Dial. What do you think about White-rA's use of the mothership? How much of a benefit do you think it was versus doing something else with the investment costs? It worked, but was it the best option? I'm starting to feel like if you get real late into the game, it can't be bad to get a mothership, especially if you're at 192 food. Just blast out a mothership, hit your food max, and you're going to be in pretty damn good shape. And I also think that the reason I like a mothership especially is because it abuses this immobility and fragmentation more. We're starting to spread out all over the map as Protoss. We're warping Zealots in at weirdly placed pylons. We're doing storm drops. We're using our fast units to sweep around him. We're using stalkers with blink. And now I have a mothership that can do a mass recall. And if you attack, you might have to face an entirely cloaked army without scan. It really forces your opponent to be really closed back and defensive and only win with some sort of huge push with some nice spell casting. So I really like that use of the mothership. Maybe we could have snuck in some extra expansions, but, easy for breezy. So, yeah, let's take some more questions. That daily ended up going a little bit quickly. I do want to state for the record that I've been doing a lot of Protoss and Terran stuff. I want to do a lot more Zerg. I'm in the mood for some Jergy stuff coming up, so... Oh my god, something smells amazing in my room. Oh my god, my roommate's cooking. Oh, I'm gonna go eat some of that afterwards. Oh, that's fantastic. So let us divine. So, El Solar says, why do you think that the Little One, when faced with a very mobile Blink Stalker, charge a lot warping army, teched into the very immobile siege tanks, it seems to me that siege tanks play into the mass gateway Protoss's hands. Now, I absolutely will re-emphasize that tanks are immobile. They need to be sieged to be really good against zealots, which, they will be. God, that smells amazing. I'm like having trouble focusing. Yeah, siege tanks are very immobile, but even when they're not sieged, they're still kind of slow. Really, really immobile. Warping in can exploit that. But I didn't emphasize enough that siege tanks are scary as shit. They kill things so quickly. Why was Little One going largely Marauder tank? Well, because tanks can kill zealots so fast, especially if they're slowed by the Marauders. Then all you have left to deal with is going to be armored units, which the Marauders and the tanks will eat up. Still think more Marines should have been in there. Perhaps 2 barracks with reactor, 3 with tech lab, instead of 4 with tech lab and 1 with a reactor. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's playing into the Protoss's hands. What I would more so say is that the Terran has so many tanks and so many just other damaging ground units that Protoss will lose if Protoss straight up faces that army. Protoss is going to have a horrible time trying to deal with that straight up. Part of the reason I'm sure Little One does that often, because most Protosses lose to it. But White-rA barely defended, and then the momentum shift, whomp, just jumped forward with this gigantic amount of little poking all over the place. So anytime you're feeling a little bit up against the wall, like let's say, Little One was reanalyzing his replay, I would say that take your Gold Expo and just sit a little bit more. Get the engineering bay, get the turrets. Make sure that you don't have these areas to be poked at, because as long as you don't get harassed too much, your core army's going to rape so bad. So you just need to make sure that you get there. More good questions from people who always ask good questions. Want to get some new people. Oh, I'm going to take a question from Zorplex. What a name. Yes, indeed. So, day 9 in your joint cast with the Little One several dailies ago. Little One said Marauders do exceptionally well in smaller fights. Do you think that if he had went with less tanks and more Marauders, and then split his army to harass White-rA's Expo earlier, he could have been more effective with his non-upgraded units? Now, what was the game? What was that? It was Huck versus somebody. I want to say Habit. Huck versus Habit. That was done in a recent daily. Right before I went to Maryland for a few days. Where Habit used a lot of medevacs and small numbers of Marauders splitting up all over the place. And exactly as Zorplex says, it looked really effective. But what I would say is you kind of need to have a focused plan. It's absolutely true that these Marauders will do well in small numbers, but your tanks do not do well in small numbers. Your tanks do very well in large numbers with reinforcements. So the tanks are telling you, stick with me, stick in a blob, play in a blob, be in a blob. And yeah, sure, you can watch players like Habit against Huck, hope that's right, doing things like Marauders all over the place. Or Braddock is another player, Marauders all over the place. So that Marauders all over the place doesn't feed well into the tanks, but because we've seen these other players do it, what I would suggest, if you wanted to do that, is to go down the completely mobile path. No factory units. Just all upgrades for your barracks units, more barracks units, getting starports for medevacs, even some Ravens in there. Just very, very fast army that can do a lot of things at once. If you have, like, Ravens, some medevacs, and a big ground army, you can do all sorts of cool stuff where, you have a Ghost going up sniping some Templar, Raven floats around and throws down a point defense drone in the mineral line, these Marauder drops are happening up here, and then what do? You can just join all of it back together like that. Or if you see a push coming, pull everything back like that. That sort of mobility works very well. But of course, the trade-off there is that Marine Marauder dies really badly to good Storms and good Colossi. So you're starting to see that there's these trade-offs with one another. So I would just make sure that movement is consistent. And I did want to state for the record, if any of you like motherships, I did some sick casts with the fine folks at MLG today. not going to say anything more, but oh, baby. Woo! Woo! That was so cool. So let us take one more question, as we have been going for 42 minutes and 27 seconds. Okay, I'll take this in one more question. Triple homicide. Very clean, easy question. Why did the Little One stop trying to get off good EMPs? That is one of those things that I think that the Little One should have just tried to make more ghosts. I straight up think that one ghost would have been more helpful. You even heard me say I think a few Marines would have been helpful. So there, you're making Marines instead of Marauders. You have a little bit more gas. I don't know exactly how much gas it takes up to get those tanks. I don't know what that feels like, but I'm pretty sure you can squeeze a ghost out of there. But that's one of those